So one of the most important parts about recording is setting up your preferences correctly, so that way you're making sure that you're recording in properly. Everything is kind of built around the things you record in, because if your settings aren't right, it's going to make the entire process not run as smoothly as it could. So in this video, I'm going to walk through exactly how you need to set up your settings to be able to record using a microphone and or an instrument to make sure that you are set up for success in your next project. So the first thing we do is we are going to open a brand new blank project here. And when you do that, you'll be able to select which type of track you're going to record. The first one is the software instrument, and this would be any kind of MIDI instrument, but for the case of this video, we're going to go over here to audio, and then you're going to look at which input you're going. So in my case, I'm going to be doing input 2 because that's the microphone I'm using currently, and then I'm going to hit create. And that brings us to the main Logic window here. First thing you have to do is go up here to your Logic Pro, go down to preferences, and then audio. So this is really important. So when we are recording in, we're going to look at our output and input device. In my case, I'm using an Universal Audio Thunderbolt to record in. So that is my input device as well as my output device. If you have a different interface like a Scarlett Focusrite or something else, you should be able to click the menu down here and make sure that everything is here that you're looking for. It'll list all of your input and output devices. So next thing that's really important, especially when it comes to recording, is the I/O buffer size. Rule of thumb is the larger the number, the more latency you'll have. In my case, if I'm just playing back, it's going to be set at 1024. But if I want to record in, which for the case of this video we do, I'm going to set it to the lowest number, which will create the least amount of latency, but also it can create difficulty in playback. But for recording in, we want to select 32. And everything else, I leave at the Logic default settings, because now that I've got the most critical part is making sure our input and output device is the way we want it to, and then our I/O buffer size set to 32. When it's set like this, everything else here is the default Logic settings, and it works great. Then we will simply hit apply. And depending on how many tracks you have, that could take a minute. So now our Logic session is set up correctly. So now in order to record, we want to make sure that our audio input is engaged. So the way we do that is clicking this little I here. Once we click that button, you'll notice that signal is starting to come in here on the fader. So that means that we are good to go. That means that our signal is coming in. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to hit this record enables it. That means that when we hit the record button, whether we click it up here or we hit the R, which is the shortcut, the R key, then once we hit it, it'll count us in. And then if I talk, you'll see that I'm getting signal recorded in. Check 1, 2, hey, check 1, 2, hit spacebar to stop. So now if I play back this audio that we just recorded, you'll see that I'm getting signal recorded in. Check 1, 2. And that's all you need to do. So in order to disengage the track, you just tap the R again and then also tap this. That way we're no longer engaging this track. So if we want to do another track, we could either do this button here, which duplicates the exact track. So then we'll see record and record. So now we're recording in the second track down. As you'll see here, if I talk, you'll see that I'm the top track because this one is selected. So now you might say, hey, I want to record 2 parts at once. Well, all you would need to do is go up here and create an audio track. And if you have multiple inputs on your interface, like I do, you could select input 1. So for this example, I have an electric guitar that I have running into my interface in input 1. So now, if I have input 1 record enabled, and also, I'm just going to go ahead and delete these extra tracks so there's less confusion. So input 1 is here. And if you want to make it even easier on yourself, just double click where it says audio and you can rename it. So I'm going to put EG for electric guitar. And up here, I'm going to put box. So now I engage that and I have both recorded. So now what I can do is I can record both at once. So let's hit record and we'll see both of these tracks will have red. So now I can record my guitar and also, sorry, I'm trying to play with the click at the same time. Spacebar to stop. So now if we play back, we will hear both tracks individually and record my guitar. So if I solo, which by solo you can either hit the letter S or click this S here, we're going to only hear guitar on one track. Same for here for the vocal. And also Hear a little bit of bleed of the electric coming through the microphone. But as you can see, we recorded both tracks independently. Now, you don't need to record both at once. I'm just giving you an example. So if you have an interface that has multiple inputs, you could technically record a bunch of things. So if drums, for instance, you had 8 channels, you could record 8 channels at once. Same way. The main thing is just making sure that your record enabled on the track and also your track is enabled here as well. And then, of course, making sure your IO buffer size is correct. So with that, now that we've recorded for this example, we're going to go back up here to audio. And so if we're just wanting to playback, so when we start adding things like plugins, it's going to make the system run harder. So we just go back to 1024, apply. Now, as you'll hear, I have a bit of a latency because I'm no longer in 32. So if I turn that off, then we're no longer enabled and we can start to add things like plugins and record. So those are the simple steps you need to be able to set up your Logic session to be able to record, whether an instrument or a microphone.